When people look at billionaires, they usually see the end results, the companies, the investments, the mansions, the private jets, the interviews where everything looks polished. What they don't see, and what billionaires rarely discuss publicly, is the invisible architecture behind their thinking, not the habits that appear on motivational posters, but the deep cognitive principles that shape every decision they make. These principles are so woven into their daily life that they don't even consider them secrets. To them, this mindset is simply the default operating system, but to the rest of the world, it looks like a different universe. Charlie Munger once said, "The first rule of compounding: never interrupt it unnecessarily." Most people assume he was talking about money, but he wasn't. He was talking about the mind. Billionaires compound mental clarity, mental discipline, and mental resilience long before they ever compound money. Their fortune is only a shadow cast by an inner framework that was built with patience, boredom, and relentless self-honesty. The invisible mindset begins with a simple truth. Your mind is a factory that produces either advantages or disadvantages. Billionaires know that before you master strategy, you must master the mind that creates strategy. They aren't obsessed with motivation the way ordinary people are. They're obsessed with avoiding stupidity. Munger said it perfectly. It is remarkable how much long-term advantage people like us have gotten by trying to be consistently not stupid. That sentence sounds too simple, so most people ignore it. But billionaires live by it. Their focus, the thing that keeps them grounded, is eliminating the mental noise that destroys good decisions. While the average person rushes to new ideas, billionaires ruthlessly prune their mental garden. They question their assumptions. They confront their blind spots. They spend more time correcting their thinking than celebrating their brilliance. And that's the first layer of the invisible mindset, a commitment to self-critique that would feel uncomfortable to most people. Every decision goes through a filter of brutal honesty. What am I missing? What bias is controlling me? Am I being emotional? Am I being arrogant? What don't I know? These are the private questions they ask themselves daily. Then comes the second layer, reducing the world to principles. Billionaires don't try to memorize facts. They try to understand the rules behind the facts. They don't want information. They want models. The world is chaotic, unpredictable, filled with randomness, and they know no human mind can keep up with every detail. So they look for timeless truths, mental models, and repeatable patterns. If you ask them how they make decisions, they won't give you the name of a book they read last week. They'll talk about incentives, second-order effects, opportunity costs, psychology of human misjudgment, and the importance of understanding feedback loops. These models give them an unfair advantage because while most people drown in detail, billionaires navigate with structure. Another piece of the invisible mindset is emotional neutrality. Ordinary people think billionaires wake up with courage, confidence, and motivation. But the truth is much simpler. They build a mind that does not collapse under pressure. They train themselves to be calm when things go wrong, patient when things are slow, and unemotional when things are exciting. Munger often warned against envy, jealousy, impulse, anger, and overconfidence because he understood that emotions destroy more fortunes than bad ideas. Billionaires don't try to be fearless. They try to be less driven by fear. They don't try to be geniuses. They try to avoid emotional stupidity. They don't try to be perfect. They try to be less wrong. This neutrality shows up in how they handle problems. While most people panic and react instantly, billionaires pause. They sit with the problem. They detach themselves from the emotion and observe it as if it's happening to someone else. This is not natural. It is trained over years of slow thinking, reflection, and repeated exposure to risk. They learn to respond instead of react. They learn to zoom out. They understand that today's failure is tomorrow's wisdom, and today's success is tomorrow's challenge. They don't celebrate too early, and they don't despair too quickly. Their emotional timeline is longer. Their patience is bigger. Their attachment to short-term outcomes is weaker. The invisible mindset also includes a level of long-term thinking that ordinary people can't fully grasp. Most people think in days, weeks, or months. Billionaires think in decades. They plant seeds today for trees they may never sit under. They don't chase shortcuts because they understand compounding only rewards those who stay in the game long enough. When they invest time into learning, they're not looking for motivation, they're building an asset. When they invest time into relationships, they're not networking, they're creating long-term trust capital. When they invest time into understanding a business, they're not trying to make a quick return, they're building a mental library that will guide future decisions. Their time horizon removes them from the herd. It gives them calm in chaos. It gives them clarity in complexity. It gives them the emotional stability to endure temporary storms. Another element of the invisible mindset is brutal simplicity. While most people complicate things to look smart, billionaires simplify things to make smart decisions. They cut out everything that does not matter. They cut out noise, gossip, excuses, and unnecessary battles. They value clarity over complexity. They often say no far more than they say yes, because they understand that every yes is a new commitment of time, energy, and focus. Their simplicity gives them speed, their clarity gives them power, their discipline gives them freedom. But perhaps the most misunderstood piece of the invisible mindset is their relationship with failure. To ordinary people, failure is embarrassment. To billionaires, failure is data. It is feedback. It is nature revealing the truth. They don't take failure personally. They treat it like a scientist treats an experiment. Every failure removes an incorrect assumption. Every failure strengthens the next decision. And because they don't fear failure, they are able to take rational risks. They think of risk like oxygen. You need it to grow, but you can't inhale too much at once. This balance between caution and courage is something they sharpen for years. Most people swing between extremes. Too safe or too reckless. Billionaires operate in the zone of intelligent risk. Small downside, massive upside, controlled environment. It's not luck, it's engineering. The invisible mindset also requires an unusual level of independence. Billionaires do not outsource their thinking to society, trends, or popular opinions. They don't care what the crowd is doing. They don't seek validation from the majority. They trust their models more than they trust the noise of the world. This independence gives them strength in moments when others panic. They know that the crowd is often wrong because the crowd is emotional. They avoid trends unless those trends are supported by principles. They avoid hype unless the hype is backed by fundamentals. And because they are not mentally tied to social approval, they make decisions that others are too afraid to make. This independence also affects how they learn. Billionaires are obsessive learners, but not in the way people imagine. They don't just read a lot, they read with purpose. They analyze, compare, question, and connect ideas across domains. They look for insights that ordinary people overlook. They revisit old books because they know their understanding deepens as their mind matures. They don't learn to look smart. They learn to build mental leverage. And leverage is the real currency of billionaires. A better decision today may be worth millions tomorrow. A better mental model may save them from a catastrophic mistake. A deeper understanding may reveal an opportunity no one else saw. The invisible mindset also has a moral dimension. Not moral in the sense of perfection, but moral in the sense of long-term practicality. Munger often said, "The best way to get what you want is to deserve what you want." Billionaires understand that trust, reputation, and fairness are assets, not because they want to be saints, but because dishonesty is expensive. Shortcuts destroy compounding. Betrayal kills opportunity. Greed blinds judgment. Playing the long game requires integrity, because without integrity, compounding collapses. So while the world thinks billionaires are ruthless, many of them are simply rational. They choose fairness because fairness works. They choose honesty because honesty compels others to cooperate. Choose long-term reputation over short-term victory because they understand the value of being trusted. And finally, the invisible mindset is built on a foundation of personal responsibility. Billionaires do not wait for conditions to be perfect. They don't blame the economy, the government, their past, or their circumstances. They take ownership of their choices, their results, their mistakes, and their future. This ownership gives them control. It gives them power in a world where everyone else feels powerless. It gives them momentum when others feel stuck. They understand that responsibility is not a burden, it is a competitive advantage. The more responsibility you take, the more power you gain. This is the invisible mindset, quiet, unflashy, deep, built slowly through thousands of decisions, thousands of reflections, thousands of failures. It is not taught in schools, it is not written in textbooks, it is lived, it is earned, and it is rarely discussed publicly because most people wouldn't understand it even if it were explained to them. The outer world of billionaires, the success, the money, the lifestyle is loud. But the inner world, the thing that actually creates all of it, is silent. But if you look carefully at Charlie Munger's teachings, you'll realize the real secret was never the money. The real secret was always the mind that produced it. There is one resource billionaires guard more fiercely than money, more fiercely than reputation, more fiercely even than opportunity. That resource is time. Not because they have less of it than anyone else, but because they understand it better than anyone else. Time to them is not something you spend. Time is something you use. Time is not something that moves past you. It is something you shape, bend, weaponize, and turn into an unfair advantage. Charlie Munger understood this deeply. He would often say that the world rewards those who know how to sit quietly, how to wait for the right moment, how to avoid urgency disguised as importance. But to understand how billionaires use time, you must first understand their relationship with it. Most people treat time emotionally. They hurry when afraid, procrastinate when uncertain, waste time when bored, and only value it once it's already gone. Billionaires treat time mathematically. They view every hour as a potential investment, not a slot to be filled. They don't ask, how do I get more done? They ask, what is worth doing? That one shift creates a different reality. Because the real power of billionaires is not that they have more hours, they have the same 24 as everyone else. Their power is the way they protect their hours, the way they design their environment, and the way they say no to everything that weakens their focus. For most people, time is reactive. They wake up, check their phone, and let the world dictate the rhythm of their day. A message here, a notification there, a small emergency, a distraction, a bit of scrolling, and the day evaporates. Billionaires do not live in that rhythm. They engineer distance from noise. They operate behind a mental firewall. They build systems, personal assistants, automated processes, decision filters, strict routines, not because they're trying to look important, but because they understand a truth few ever realize. If they let the world decide their schedule, the world will also decide their future. To them, time is a strategic asset. It is not spent on gossip, arguments, or opinions. It's not wasted on tasks that don't compound. They do not make themselves accessible to everyone. They don't reply to everything immediately. They don't attend every meeting, return every call, or entertain every invitation. They know that availability is the enemy of achievement. If they let every request enter their life, their mind would fracture, their focus would evaporate, and their strategic capability would collapse. Munger understood that time management is not about calendars and clocks. It is about clarity of priorities. The average person values comfort over clarity. Billionaires value clarity over comfort. They know what they want, what moves the needle, and what distracts them. And once they know this, they guard it with unwavering discipline. They structure their life so that the things that matter get done regardless of mood, weather, or circumstance. They design an environment where focus is the default, not the exception. One of the most powerful but invisible habits billionaires share is eliminating decision fatigue. The world is full of tiny choices: what to wear, where to eat, who to talk to, what message to reply to, what small task to finish first. Each one drains energy. Each one steals mental bandwidth. Billionaires remove these small choices by systemizing them. They simplify wardrobes, automate daily routines, delegate logistical friction, and reduce the trivial decisions that drain mental strength. Their mind becomes uncluttered, spacious, sharp. This allows them to save their decision-making power for the things that matter, the strategic moves, the investments, the opportunities that shift life by 10x, not one. This is the first major truth about billionaire time management. It is built on ruthlessness, not cruelty, not harshness, ruthlessness. The ability to cut without guilt, to say no without apology, to protect focus without seeking permission. They understand that every yes is a prison cell. Every unnecessary commitment becomes a chain around their future. So they learn to say no the way a surgeon uses a scalpel, with precision, with purpose, with confidence. But there's something deeper. Billionaires understand the rhythm of their own mind. They know when they think clearly, when they think weakly, when they are creative, when they are analytical, when they need silence, when they need stimulation. The average person fights against their brain. Billionaires work with it. They arrange high-stakes decisions during their peak cognitive hours. They schedule deep thinking when their mind is most capable. They structure their day so that the hardest, most important tasks happen when they are mentally strongest. This is simplicity disguised as brilliance. Most people never operate at their cognitive peak because their schedule is built accidentally. Billionaires operate at peak levels because their schedule is built intentionally. Another thing that separates billionaires from everyone else is the way they measure time. They don't measure it in minutes or hours. They measure it in outcomes. If something takes 10 minutes but creates long-term leverage, it is valuable. If something takes 3 hours but produces nothing meaningful, it is worthless. They judge time not by duration but by return. They ask, does this compound? Does this move me toward my goals? Does this create leverage? Does this build my future? This mindset transforms their days into a series of high-value actions instead of busy work. And that's where the next secret of their time mastery emerges. Billionaires avoid urgency. Most people live in chronic urgency. Their mind jumps constantly. I have to answer this. I must handle this. This can't wait. Let me do this quickly. Urgency is addictive because it feels like importance. But billionaires know urgency is the enemy of strategy. Urgency forces fast thinking, emotional thinking, shallow thinking. So they guard their life against unnecessary urgency. They build layers of insulation, assistance, buffers, boundaries, to ensure that only real emergencies reach them. If something is not life-altering or financially critical, it waits. And in the space created, they think deeply. Deep thinking is their hidden superpower. While others drown in actions, billionaires gain their advantage from thoughts. They know that one well-thought decision can save decades of mistakes. 1 hour of clarity can outperform 100 hours of effort. That is why they carve out time for solitude. They sit alone. They reflect. They zoom out. They analyze the future, observe patterns, evaluate risks, and think about consequences. This reflective thinking, slow, deliberate, repeated, is what ordinary people never see. They assume billionaires are taking massive action all day. In reality, billionaires spend far more time thinking than doing, because thinking creates leverage. Doing without thinking destroys it. But perhaps the greatest difference in how billionaires use time is this: they plan for decades but operate day by day. They hold a long-term vision in their mind while executing in small, consistent, powerful daily actions. They don't rush success. They don't expect instant results. They don't get discouraged by slow progress. They know that time is the ally of the disciplined and the enemy of the impulsive. Compounding rewards the patient. Life tilts in favor of those who can wait without losing momentum. So they build their life around consistency. They wake up at the same time. They read daily, they think daily, they make small improvements daily, they tweak processes, analyze systems, and continually optimize. They don't look for dramatic bursts of productivity. They look for reliable progress. Over time, this consistency becomes unstoppable. While others are sprinting and collapsing, billionaires are walking steadily toward a future they have already designed. Another core part of billionaire time mastery is the ability to delegate intelligently. Many people delegate out of laziness or convenience. Billionaires delegate based on multiplication. They ask, is my time best used here? If the answer is no, someone else does it. This doesn't come from arrogance, it comes from clarity. They know their highest value activities, thinking, strategizing, learning, making key decisions. Anything that pulls them away from those activities drains the power of their mind. So they build teams, they build systems, they hire people not just to save time, but to expand capacity. Every person they hire becomes an extension of their time. Every system they build becomes a machine that produces progress without needing their presence. That is how they multiply themselves. But with all this structure and discipline, there is another layer that is rarely spoken about. Billionaires know how to slow down. They know that burnout kills intelligence. They know that constant urgency destroys long-term decision quality. So they rest strategically. They disconnect purposely. They recharge not because they're tired, but because they know a tired mind makes costly decisions. Their rest is not laziness, it is maintenance. It is sharpening the blade. It is preserving the quality of their most important asset, their judgment. Billionaire time mastery is a dance between intensity and stillness, action and reflection, decisiveness and patience. They know when to attack opportunities and when to wait. They know when to move fast and when to move slow. And this timing, this sense of rhythm, is what separates wise decisions from foolish ones. Charlie Munger mastered this rhythm. He knew that most people ruin their lives not by doing too little, but by doing too much of what does not matter. He once said, I did not succeed in life because I was smart. I succeeded because I avoided stupidity. This also applies to time. Billionaires succeed not because they fill every minute with activity, but because they eliminate the activities that waste minutes. The truth is simple but rarely understood. Time is not something billionaires manage. Time is something they command. They shape it deliberately. They protect it aggressively. They invest it wisely. They treat it as the foundation of compounding, the soil in which every fortune grows. And while the world chases productivity hacks, billionaires focus on a different principle: clarity, clarity of purpose, clarity of priorities, clarity of thinking. Once clarity exists, time aligns. Once priorities are defined, distractions vanish. Once vision is set, action flows naturally. This is how billionaires use time as a weapon, not by working more, but by working correctly. Not by doing everything, but by doing what matters. Not by reacting to life, but by designing it. Time is their strongest ally because they treat it with the respect it deserves. And in the end, that is what separates them from everyone else. Not talent, not luck, not intelligence, but the invisible discipline of how they spend the one resource that can never be replaced. There is a strange illusion most people live with, the belief that the wealthy became wealthy because they knew a secret formula, a hidden tactic, some shortcut locked away in an exclusive room where only billionaires are allowed to enter. But the truth is far more unsettling. The real secrets of money aren't locked away at all. They're hiding in plain sight. They are simple, logical, almost embarrassingly obvious principles. But they're so simple that the average person ignores them, while billionaires build empires on top of them. Charlie Munger understood this better than anyone. He used to say the big money is not in the buying or the selling, but in the waiting. Most people hear that and think he's just talking about stocks. But Munger wasn't speaking about the stock market. He was talking about human nature. Money is a behavioral game long before it becomes a mathematical one. The wealthy play a different game because they follow rules that are invisible to everyone else. Rules about patience, leverage, risk, and positioning. These rules guide every choice they make. And the fascinating part is that billionaires never talk openly about them because the average person isn't ready to hear them. It is the ability to control time, choices, and direction. When they make money, they do not celebrate by increasing their lifestyle. They increase their mobility, their optionality, their power to wait for the right opportunities and strike decisively when those opportunities appear. Most people, when they get money, upgrade their life. Billionaires, when they get money, upgrade their position. Money to them is a shield against randomness. Life has chaos, uncertainty, economic cycles, recessions, crashes, unexpected events, and billionaires use money not to show off, but to stay unshaken. They know that the real purpose of wealth is to create a margin of safety, a buffer, a cushion that allows them to think rationally while the rest of the world panics. Munger often emphasized this. He believed that an investor collapses not because of the market's volatility, but because of their lack of preparation for it. Wealthy people stay calm in turbulence because they have engineered their life to withstand storms. That calmness itself becomes a competitive advantage. Second hidden principle is understanding the difference between income and wealth. Most people chase income, a higher salary, a bigger monthly check, a little more money flowing in. Billionaires chase assets. They chase ownership. They chase systems that make money while they sleep, think, or travel. They know that income is temporary, but assets are permanent. Income stops the moment you stop working. But assets keep producing, keep compounding, keep expanding. This is the mindset shift. Almost no one is taught. Wealth is not measured by how much you earn, but by how much you own, and how much of what you own grows without your effort. Billionaires structure their life around compounding. They understand exponential growth on an intuitive level. They know that money multiplies quietly, slowly at first, then suddenly. A single good decision made 10 years ago can become the foundation of everything they own today. This is why they are so patient, why they are so calm, why they don't chase trends or gamble for quick wins. They are not trying to get rich fast. They are trying to get rich forever. And to achieve that, they must respect the slow, invisible force of time. Most people underestimate how much wealth can grow if left untouched. Billionaires, on the other hand, guard compounding like a sacred ritual. They never interrupt it unnecessarily. The third hidden principle is risk management. This is the real difference between ordinary investors and wealthy investors. Most people think billionaires take huge risks. The truth is the opposite. Billionaires avoid reckless risk more than anyone. They do not gamble. They do not make emotional decisions. They do not rush. They move only when the downside is limited and the upside is substantial. Their secret weapon is asymmetric bets. Situations where the worst-case scenario is survivable, but the best-case scenario is life-changing. They structure their investments like this, their businesses like this, even their relationships like this. This is why Munger kept repeating that avoiding mistakes was more important than chasing brilliance. The wealthy understand that building wealth is like climbing a hill, but losing wealth is like falling off a cliff. One wrong decision can erase years of progress, so they spend more time protecting their money than trying to multiply it. To them, risk is not about fear, it is about math. They ask, how much can I lose? How much can this ruin me? If the risk threatens their long-term survival, they walk away. No matter how tempting the reward looks. This patience, this discipline, this refusal to be seduced by short-term excitement. That is what separates the wealthy from the desperate. The fourth hidden principle is understanding the power of cycles. Markets rise and fall. Economies expand and contract. Opportunities appear and disappear. Most people react emotionally to cycles. They get greedy during booms and fearful during busts. Billionaires do the opposite. They buy when fear is high. They conserve cash when greed is high. They stay prepared. They observe from a distance. They refuse to be manipulated. They invest steadily. They avoid lifestyle inflation. They do not let emotions derail their long-term plans. They do not self-sabotage through impulsive purchases. They do not chase status symbols. Their discipline becomes a financial engine. It is not glamorous. It is not flashy, but over decades it creates a gravitational field of wealth. Perhaps the most hidden principle of all is this: wealthy people understand that money flows toward value. They know that if they want more money, they must solve bigger problems, serve more people, or create more meaningful solutions. They focus on producing value, not collecting money, because money is a byproduct of value, not the goal. When they start companies, they ask, what can we create that the world needs but doesn't have yet? When they invest, they ask which business provides the most essential value. When they build wealth, they ask, how do we increase the value we give so the money follows naturally? This is why billionaires don't chase money. They build magnets that attract it. Charlie Munger believed deeply in the principle of deserving success. The world is not yet a crazy enough place to reward undeserving people. In other words, you cannot cheat your way to sustainable wealth. You must build something real, something useful, something that improves life for others. That is what the world rewards consistently over time. Then there is a principle almost no one talks about openly: privacy. Billionaires do not broadcast their financial moves. They do not tell the world what they are buying. They do not announce their strategies. They do not share their frameworks publicly. They operate quietly. They protect their thinking. They know that public attention brings unnecessary pressure, opinions, criticism, and noise. They build wealth in silence because silence protects clarity. Silence protects focus. Silence protects freedom. The wealthiest people live in private worlds where strategy unfolds unseen, uncriticized, uninterrupted. Another piece of their hidden mindset is their relationship with debt. Most people fall into debt because they want comfort earlier than they can afford it. Billionaires use debt strategically, not emotionally. They use it to acquire assets, to scale businesses, to multiply returns, not to impress society or compensate for insecurity. They see debt as a tool, not a trap, and because they never use it impulsively, it rarely harms them. Finally, billionaires understand the ultimate truth about money. The goal is not to have money. The goal is to become the kind of person who can generate money repeatedly, regardless of circumstances. That means building judgment. That means building knowledge. That means building resilience. That means building a mind capable of navigating uncertainty with clarity and confidence. Because true wealth is not the money in your bank account. True wealth is the ability to create it again and again because your mind has become a compounding machine. This is the money game billionaires play, not the one taught in schools, not the one celebrated on social media, but the quiet game, the slow, strategic, disciplined game, the game of patience, positioning, and principles. The game most people never see because they're too distracted by the illusion of wealth to study the structure behind it. The wealthy aren't hiding these principles to keep others poor. They don't talk about them simply because they know most people aren't ready to listen. But if you listen closely, if you study their behavior instead of their lifestyle, you'll see the truth. Wealth was never about luck. It was about learning the rules of a game that most people don't even know they're playing. And once you learn those rules, nothing about money will ever look the same again. Most people lose because they demand speed. They want success to look like fireworks, loud, bright, immediate. They want to post pictures of progress, show the world they're grinding, and collect applause before the game has even begun. But Charlie Munger, the man who quietly turned a middle-class life into billionaire-level wealth, understood a truth so powerful that it terrifies the impatient. The greatest rewards come from compounding, and compounding always looks like nothing is happening until everything is happening. Compounding is strange. It feels boring. It's invisible in the early stages. It's the kind of progress that never trends online. because it's too slow, too steady, too unglamorous. But beneath that slowness lies the strongest mathematical force in human achievement. And the people who learn to trust it, truly trust it, emotionally, not just intellectually, walk into a future that looks lucky to outsiders, but was actually built from years of invisible discipline. Charlie Munger once said, "The first rule of compounding is to never interrupt it unnecessarily." Yet most people break this rule every month, every week, sometimes every day, because they can't handle the silence of slow growth. Billionaires think differently. Their relationship with time is different. Their expectations are different. Their patience is engineered, not accidental. They don't need immediate rewards because they trust the future enough to sacrifice the present. This is the mindset behind compounding, and once you truly understand it, everything in your life changes. The silent years that pay off later. Every major success story in business, investing, creativity, or personal transformation has a phase nobody likes to talk about, the silent years. The years where you're making effort but seeing almost no return. The years where your friends think you're wasting time. The years where you question yourself every day. But this is how compounding works. The first dollar you save is boring. The first gym session changes nothing. The first page you write doesn't make you an author. The first business idea doesn't make you an entrepreneur. Even the first 100 efforts often look like failure. That's why most people quit. They don't realize that compounding works like a staircase. Flat, 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 then suddenly vertical. They quit during the flat part because they don't know a vertical rise is coming. Charlie Munger knew this intimately. He spent the early decades of his life working, struggling, reading, learning, with no audience, no spotlight, no fame. He trusted the process when nothing looked promising, and that trust is what created the exponential returns later. This is the part of success nobody applauds. The years where your effort grows, but your results don't. The billionaires stay in this phase longer than everyone else. That's their secret, why people fail to compound, emotionally, not logically. Ask anyone, is compounding powerful? Most will say yes. They've seen graphs, they've heard quotes, they understand the math. But knowing the concept and having the temperament are two different universes. People don't fail because they misunderstand compounding. They fail because they can't emotionally tolerate slow progress. You start saving money, and after months it still looks small. You start a business, and the profits look meaningless. You start learning a new skill, and you still feel like a beginner. You start posting content, and nobody watches. Humans are wired for immediate feedback. If something doesn't reward us quickly, our brain labels it as useless. This biological impulse is the enemy of compounding. Billionaires fight this impulse. They rewire their expectations. They make peace with slow results. They build thick emotional skin. Charlie Munger wasn't motivated by daily results. He was motivated by long-term inevitability. He knew that. What looks slow today can look unstoppable tomorrow. What looks insignificant now can become enormous later. What looks like a waste of time early can become your greatest leverage. Compounding demands emotional strength, not intelligence, the discipline to not touch the machine. Most people interrupt compounding because they can't leave things alone. They pull out money when tempted. They change strategies when nervous. They switch goals when bored. They sabotage their own exponential curve. Billionaires don't do this. Once they identify a strategy that works, they stick to it with almost unreasonable loyalty. They survive the boring years. They survive the market dips. They survive the doubts. They survive the impatience. Munger and Buffett bought companies and held them for decades, not months, not years, decades. When a business was good, they didn't jump in and out based on emotions. They let time do the heavy lifting, and that's the genius. Time becomes your employee. Patience becomes your leverage. Stability becomes your strategy. If you keep pulling the seed out of the soil to check if it's growing, it never will. But if you plant it, water it, protect it, and then leave it alone, it will grow into something giant. leave it alone part is where 99% of people fail. That's also why most people never experience compounding at its full power. Compounding works everywhere, not just money. Money is only the beginning. Compounding applies to knowledge, skills, relationships, discipline, reputation, health, creativity, opportunities. The longer you stay consistent in any of these, the more they begin to multiply. Read daily for 5 years. You won't just know more. You'll think differently, speak differently, and see opportunities others miss. Train every day. You want to just improve your body. You'll improve your mind, your habits, your confidence, your stress management. Work on one craft for a decade. Your skill will compound into mastery, and mastery will compound into opportunities few people even qualify for. Be reliable and honest for 20 years. Your reputation will compound into trust that no money can buy. The hidden truth is this: long-term compounding turns ordinary people into extraordinary ones, not because they're special, but because they stayed on the path long enough for the path to reward them. The world thinks in days. Billionaires think in decades. Most people make 30-day plans. Billionaires make 30-year commitments. Most people want quick wins. Billionaires want inevitable wins. Most people chase trends. Billionaires build foundations. Charlie Munger didn't look for businesses that would explode next month. He looked for businesses that would still dominate 20 years later. That is an entirely different approach to life. Long-term thinkers build things that last because they design their decisions around sustainability, not excitement. They understand that every decision is a vote for the future. They choose habits, investments, relationships, skills, and ideas that will pay them again and again. When you think long-term, your ego gets quiet, your decisions get wiser, your patience gets stronger, your results get bigger. You stop competing with other people. You start competing with who you were last year. That mindset is rare, which is why its rewards are rare. The magic happens after most people quit. Here's the part that's almost painful to understand. The greatest rewards of compounding show up right after the majority of people have quit, meaning you start seeing real results in fitness after most beginners stop going to the gym. You start seeing financial momentum after most people stop saving because it wasn't working. You start seeing business traction after most entrepreneurs shut down their idea. You start seeing creative breakthroughs after most artists lose faith. Compounding punishes the impatient and rewards the disciplined. Charlie Munger said, "It's not supposed to be easy. Anyone who finds it easy is stupid." He wasn't insulting people. He was describing the reality. If compounding felt exciting in the beginning, everyone would do it, and if everyone did it, it wouldn't produce extraordinary results. The boredom is the filter. The silence is the test. The slow growth is the struggle that separates the few from the many. Most people want the rewards of compounding, but not the patience required to reach the stage where the rewards appear. Small improvements, massive outcomes. Compounding doesn't require giant leaps. It requires small improvements repeated over long periods. Improve your skill by one a week, your knowledge by one a day, your patience by one a month, your finances by one a paycheck, your health by one each morning. Those tiny increases look meaningless today, but they are building something huge behind the scenes. A 1% improvement doesn't stay 1%. It compounds into something unimaginable. The difference between ordinary and extraordinary is not talent. It's accumulated consistency. Charlie Munger read every day, not for an hour, for hours, for decades. That information piled up inside him until it formed a decision-making engine worth billions. One book didn't do it, 1 year didn't do it, one breakthrough didn't do it, the accumulation did. That's compounding. Slow is smooth, smooth becomes fast. People misunderstand slow. They think slow means weak, boring, or ineffective. What they don't understand is that slow becomes smooth, and smooth becomes fast. A person who progresses slowly but consistently will eventually outperform the person who sprints and stops, sprints and stops, sprints and collapses. Consistency outlasts intensity. Billionaires never rely on bursts of motivation. They rely on systems, habits, and long-term momentum. They build things slowly so they can scale them quickly. Think of compounding as a snowball. Small at first, rolling slowly, barely noticeable. Then gravity takes over, momentum kicks in, the size multiplies, the speed increases. What was once small becomes unstoppable. That is the exact metaphor for every Munger decision. Start small, be patient, let time multiply the effort. Why compounding makes you unstoppable. Once compounding kicks in, money starts earning money. Skills start creating opportunities. Relationships start forming networks. Knowledge starts improving decisions. Confidence starts attracting challenges. Experience starts reducing mistakes. Everything begins feeding everything else. Progress begins happening in multiple directions at once. This is when life feels lucky. This is when people say, you're so talented, not realizing your talent is just accumulated repetition. This is when people ask, how did you do it so fast? Not realizing it took years of slow. Compounding gives you asymmetry. You put in less effort and get more reward. This is the power that billionaires tap into, not because they're smarter, but because they're patient enough to get to the explosive part of the curve. The final truth, compounding is a lifestyle, not a strategy. The people who win big don't use compounding. They live it. They show up every day, even when it's boring. They invest consistently, even when it's scary. They improve themselves regularly, even when nobody sees it. They trust in the future, even when the present feels empty. This is the billionaire mindset. You don't chase fast results. You build inevitable ones. Charlie Munger didn't become wealthy because one decision made him rich. He became wealthy because 1,000 small, smart decisions compounded quietly over a lifetime. And that's your blueprint, too. If you can embrace the silent years, if you can stay committed when nobody claps, if you can trust the curve when progress seems invisible, if you can let time become your partner, you will discover the same power the billionaires discovered. Because compounding doesn't care about your background, it doesn't care about your past, it doesn't care about your circumstances, it only cares about consistency. The longer you play the game, the more the game bends in your favor. And one day, sooner than you think but later than you expect, the world will look at your success and call it sudden. But you will know the truth. It wasn't sudden, it was compounding.